In this video, we're talking about how to find a vector from 2 points. And in this particular problem, we've been given the 2 points R and S, where R is the coordinate point 1, 2, and S is the point 3, 5. So before we do anything else, let's go ahead and plot these points. So we're going to say that the point R is at 1, 2, so 1, 2. We'll say that this point right here is the point R. And then we have the point S at 3, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So about here, let's say. So this will be the point S. Now it's important to know that vectors indicate direction. So when we say find the vector RS and find the vector SR, even though they both have the same essentially endpoints, they point in different directions. So the vector RS starts at the point R, it has its initial point at R, and it goes to S, and then it has its terminal point at S, versus the vector SR, which starts at, has its initial point at S, and goes to R and has its terminal point at R. So they start and end at the same point, but they point in different directions. And therefore, they're two different vectors. So if we want to find the vector RS, that means we're starting at R, we're going to S. What we need to do is subtract the values in the coordinate point R from the values in the coordinate point S. So you subtract R from S. So if we want to say find the vector RS, the vector RS, that's going to look like this. And to indicate a vector, we use angle brackets instead of parentheses like we're used to for coordinate points. So for RS, we're going to take the values from the coordinate point S and subtract the values from the coordinate point R. So to get our new x value, we're going to say 3 minus 1. So 3 minus 1. And to get our new y value, we're going to say 5 minus 2. So 5 minus 2. In other words, we did S minus R. So when we simplify here, 3 minus 1 gives us 2, 5 minus 2 gives us 3. So the vector then is 2, 3. And all that means, first of all, if we draw our vector, so this is going to be the vector RS like this, and we'll go ahead and indicate the vector here RS. All it means in vector notation here is, what do I do with x? I'm going to move in the positive direction of the x-axis 2 units, and then what do I do with y? I'm going to move in the positive direction of the y-axis 3 units because I have positive 2 and positive 3. In other words, it's kind of just like slope. So to get from point R to point S, I have to move in the positive direction of the x-axis 2 units because I have 2 here. Then I have to move in the positive direction of the y-axis 3 units because I have positive 3. So I go up here 3 units. That's what gets me from R to S. So the vector RS is just 2, 3. What if I want to find the vector SR? So let's go ahead and say here the vector SR, and we'll indicate this vector in green. Well, remember, we always take the values from the second point and we subtract the values from the first point. So this is going to be R minus S. And what we're going to do is our angle brackets here. So we're going to take the values from R, so in this case 1, and subtract the values from S, so 3. So we just flip it. Instead of 3 minus 1, it's 1 minus 3. And then for the new y value, it's going to be 2 minus 5 instead of 5 minus 2, so 2 minus 5. And when we simplify this, 1 minus 3 gives us negative 2, 2 minus 5 gives us negative 3. So the vector SR is the vector negative 2, negative 3, which just tells us that if we want to get from S to R, in other words, this vector right here, so we'll do it just next to it so that you can see what it looks like. So just next to it is going to be this vector here, SR. To get from S to R, what do we have to do with x? Well, we have to move in the negative direction of the x-axis 2 units because we have negative 2 here. So we have to go toward the negative direction of the x-axis 2 units. Then what do we have to do with y? Well, we have to move in the negative direction of the y-axis 3 units because we have negative 3. So we go down 3 in the negative direction of the y-axis. That's what gets us from S to R. So as you can see, if these were lines instead of vectors, they would have the same slope because the vector just represents here change in x, change in y, and we could just take change in y divided by change in x, and that would give us slope. So the slope would be 3 over 2, or 3 halves. Same thing here, we would take negative 3 over negative 2, and that would simplify, the negatives would cancel, that would simplify to positive 3 halves. So you can see that they have the same slope if they were lines. But since they're vectors that indicate direction, we have to distinguish between the vector RS, which starts at R and ends at S, and the vector SR, which starts at S and ends at R. So that's how you find a vector from 2 coordinate points.